Good evening and welcome again to Globespan 24/7, our Monday night program here in New York. We want to thank all our viewers for tuning in. We also want to thank Nohar Singh for making this platform available, and of course to Devin, our technical specialist, for broadcasting it around the world. This evening, as we welcome the Honorable Minister, Susan Rodrigues, who is the Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water. We've been trying to get our ministers to come on the program so they can tell our viewers exactly what is going on within their ministry. And tonight, we will have a great session with the Honorable Minister. Before I invite Minister to say a few words, today, as we celebrate around the world the beginning of the winter solstice, December 21st, which, as we know, is the shortest day in the Western Hemisphere. Today also, we had a conjuncture with Jupiter and Saturn. The last time this happened was in 1226, 794 years ago. So today is a really special day for those of us who are alive. For those of you in Guyana, and if the weather is clear, the sky is clear, you can look in the southwestern part of where you live, and you should be able to see the two planets there, Jupiter and Saturn. I went out here in New York to look for it at sunset, but I couldn't see it because it's so cloudy here in the US. So again, a very special day, and we don't know what this means, but we just hope that it's all best for the world where we live in. So Minister Rodrigues, we want to welcome you and thank you so much for making yourself available to be on the program tonight.
Sure, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Dr. Rose, Mr. Sugrim. Let me just say a special good evening to you, and good evening and welcome to all of your viewers and listeners. And seasoned greetings.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you. Thank you.
And of course to my co-host, Dr. Rose. Welcome, Dr. Rose.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, Minister, you are a minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water. Your senior minister is Minister Colin Crowell. So as we start tonight, can you tell us exactly within the ministry, what are your direct responsibilities? What falls within your portfolio?
Well, as it is right now, Minister Crowell and I share the responsibilities equally. Of course, there are certain things that come directly to my office and certain things that go directly to his office, and we will take responsibility for that. But generally, we share the responsibilities. The ministry is not split in any way, and so there is enough work to go around for both ministers. And you know that it is a ministry that interfaces a lot with the public. And so in addition to our responsibilities of running the ministry, we have to be available to the public. It's a lot of groundwork and a lot of community outreaches. And then persons come into the ministry and engage us on different levels. So there's a lot to go around.
Right. You talk about sharing the responsibility with Minister Crowell, but in terms of there's nothing specifically that Minister Crowell says, Minister Rodrigues, this is what I want you to concentrate on. Even though you're helping me within the ministry itself, but I want to concentrate on 1, 2, 3. Is there that specific responsibility?
No, sometimes we would, when we meet and we discuss, we would separate projects, but it's through mutual agreement and not any kind of structure. All approvals come through both of us so that we are both kept in the loop, but we both contribute equally to the running of the ministry. And as you know, we have oversight for 2 semi-autonomous bodies, that is Central Housing and Planning Authority and the Guyana Water Incorporated, and you have 2 CEOs there as well. So Minister Crowell and I, we try not to get into the everyday running of the agencies, and we are more responsible for policy direction. Of course, if our intervention is needed in the agency, we are always available to do so.
So I know that you're being a minister from August, middle of August, maybe beginning of August. How's it been for you? How it has been as being a minister for this period of time?
Well, life has certainly changed, but you know, this political life, that is, I've been involved in politics for about 4 years now, and it's been a struggle. It's been a very busy time in my life. I thought I worked hard before, but now I really know what hard work is. And so from August to now, you know, we've had our challenges. I've had to make certain adjustments with my public life. I've had to make adjustments at home. I'm a mother of two young children, and so it took a lot of reorganizing. It really took an entire family effort to get me to this point, because even over the last few years when we were campaigning, I spent a lot of time from home. And you may know that I campaigned across all 10 regions. So I was in the fields a lot, had hundreds of meetings and community outreaches. So I guess I've been training for this time in a sense over the last few years. So it's been quite interesting. I've grown a lot as a person, and I think I've found my true calling. I'm very satisfied about where I am in life now, and it gives me great fulfillment to be able to respond to the needs of the public, because I feel like I have a lot of energy and a lot to offer Guyana and the people of my country, and all I want to do is serve.
I'm glad you mentioned you work hard, because we are told that ministers don't work, they do nothing. So
That really is a rumor. Maybe it would have been good if it's true, because then I could relax now, but that's not the case. It's really, really a lot of work, and especially given what has happened, what has taken place in our country over the last 5 years, we have a lot of making up to do. And when we came to the ministry in August of this year, some of the things we found, you know, were quite shocking. And so we have to pick up the pieces, and we have to ensure that we respond to the needs of the public. As you may have seen or read, we inherited a backlog of 70,000 active applicants in the system, and we found that there was no clear housing policy or no program that was guiding the ministry that we could have just picked up and ran with and, you know, taken credit for in the short term. We had to start from scratch, literally. There was no new housing development over the last 5 years, and by the former minister's own admission, they only distributed about 7,000 house lots, just over 7,000 house lots over the last 5 years. And you know, our target is 50,000 house lots over the next 5 years. That's 10,000 per annum. So we're going to achieve in our first year more than the previous administration did in their 5 years. And recently we have started allocations, and we are hoping to achieve 3,500. We have made available 3,500 lots, which is half of what they have done in their entire 5-year term. We are going to achieve in our first 4 months. So it's really a lot of work. And now it's the Christmas season. And while all of the other ministries are probably winding down, and everybody is kind of winding down and taking time to do their shopping and focus on Christmas, we are now we're in overdrive. You know, we've had meetings with the staff, and we've said to them, look, you know, we understand that we all need time, but the population has been waiting for so long, and there's a huge demand for housing, and the population is impatient. So we may be giving up this one Christmas, but a lot of people we will be making happy this Christmas by delivering their Christmas present of a house lot that they've waited for a very long time for. So the sacrifice is worth it. And we look forward to bringing the smiles on the faces of a lot of people. And I've seen that over the last few days, and I look forward to that in the coming days.
I can see your work, Minister. You seem, what you said there, you have a lot of work on your plate. Dr. Rose?
Good evening again, Minister Rodrigues. It's a pleasure having you here. I normally will start my questions by asking you, look, I never heard the name Susan Rodrigues before. And if I did not hear it, this means the vast majority of Guyanese have never heard it. Can you give us a little background of where you're from, where you grew up, where you went to school and so forth, and how you got where you got today?
Well, I was born at Georgetown Public Hospital in 1987. I'm 33 years old. I came from very humble beginnings. I was brought up in Middle Road, La Penitence. My family still lives there up to this day, and I don't think they have any intention of moving from that area. I do visit from time to time, so I'm very grounded. I didn't have a very what should I say? I came from humble beginnings, and of course, I went to Ketley Primary. That's in Ketley Street at Charlestown. So very humble beginnings. And then I went to Marion Academy for my high school. And then I went to Bishop's High, where I studied law. And then I went on to the University of Guyana. I have my LLB. And then I did my MBA at the University of Bedfordshire. I was involved in the private sector prior to entering politics. I did construction. My family has a salvaging business. I've dabbled in several other business ventures, real estate, etc. So I've had a very active life and a very successful one outside of politics. But I think I got bored, and I don't think private sector was challenging enough for me. And I also started paying attention to politics over the last 5 years, and I wasn't happy with what I was seeing taking place in our country. And I felt like I had something to give back. I felt motivated, and I wanted to do better for my country. I think my country deserves better. I think we deserve better leadership than what we were seeing. And, one day I just walked into Freedom House and I joined the PPP. And this was about 6 months after they lost the elections in 2015. And they thought I was crazy because I went to my first meeting, my first group meeting, and some of the comrades said to me, well, why do you want to join us now? Because they just lost elections. And, I said, I want to put the PPP back in power. I think that the PPP has something to offer our country, and I would like to offer my help in putting the party back in power. And so the journey started there, and we really, really worked in opposition. It wasn't an easy task. Of course, everything that the APNU did was to their own disadvantage as well. But we had a tough task because the country was very divided, and so we had to find a way to bring people together. And I've always been into those challenging communities, South Ramveld, Sophia. I've always found those communities very accepting, and I campaigned in some of the roughest areas, and the party sent me across all the regions, including the hinterland regions, and it was an exciting time. I enjoyed meeting people from across the regions. I enjoyed touring our country, and I felt like all of the outreaches, all of the meetings, all of the consultations we had really helped me and helped our party to shape our manifesto, to craft our manifesto so that we can be very effective once we won the elections and took office. So that period also gave the party a chance, and all of the leaders a chance to go back to the grassroots level and really get to meet the people and let the people get to meet us and know who they're electing. I think during this election cycle, especially, the people got to really meet their leaders and to really get to know them and spend time with them. And I spent a lot of time at the office of the leader of the opposition. I was there with our now Vice President, Dr. Barjaglio, and we met a lot of people. People used to come every day and tell us about their challenges and their difficulties. And it really helped our party and it helped us as individuals to prepare for office and to prepare programs and policies to make us really effective once we took office. And the same thing I can say for the president. You know that once he was announced as the presidential candidate, he started a ground campaign where, he was just visiting every community, every corner of this country. And that was very admirable. And I think all of us followed in his footsteps once he started to visit all of these communities and have all these outreaches. And that really helped ground him, helped ground all of us and prepare us for public life now. And now that we are in office, I am happy to see the same trend continuing, that we're not stuck in our offices, that we are not governing from behind a desk, but we're balancing that time, and all of the ministers are out. We're working 7 days a week. If we're in office Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we're out in the communities, we're meeting people, and we're being guided by the feedback that we're having from the ground. And I think if we continue in this manner, that will be very, very successful in our first term.
Okay. Now, you're fully aware that you have one of the largest ministries in Guyana, housing. It is a dream of the vast majority of Guyanese to own their own homes, perhaps two, perhaps three. Now, you have coined a development phrase called dream realized. Can you tell the listeners what that is all about?
Well, owning your own home is perhaps the biggest investment somebody would make in their lifetime. It's a dream that everybody has, to have their own home, to have that security of owning their own home. And we were brainstorming one day as to what we want to call this event, which started as a title distribution. And so it just came to us, this is a dream for most people, to be able to own their own home. So, we added a verb to that, dream realized, that this is actually happening. And when we came to office, we found that there was also a backlog of titles, where we had over 2,000 titles just sitting at the ministry and were not distributed. Of course, there were certain things that were preventing it, but it's just simply needed somebody to pick it up and say, okay, let's get these titles through. Let's call up these people. Let's see who has outstanding payments. Let's try to make contact with them. Let's try to help them through this process. And so we started that, and that our first major activity was the title distribution. And I think we've distributed over 1,000 of those titles already, and we plan to continue that as well. And even though we don't have events around the country to do that, persons can come into the ministry and they can try to follow up on their title, and we are making contact with those people as well. And so we decided we're going to keep that title because I think it's very applicable, the dream of home ownership. And so that went from one activity to the other. So after the title distribution, we prepared the lots for allocation. And so we kept the title. And so we have the Dream Realized land allocation exercise going on right now. We have 2 days in Region 4, and we're going to have 2 days in Region 3 tomorrow and the following day. And then after Christmas, we go to Tain Berbice on the 29th, I believe, and we're going to have a land allocation activity, a Dream Realized land allocation activity there as well. So we hope that people turn out and realize their dream of home ownership.
Okay. Now, when you took office, and these are the figures I went and did research on, since the 1990s, there are 90,000 backlog applicants for houses. You said you're going to give out 50,000 within 5 years. So there'll still be a backlog of 40,000 within the next 5 years, plus additional people who would want to apply during the 5 years.
Yes, so when we came to the ministry, we found that there were 70,000 active applicants, meaning there's more than 70,000 in the system, but 70,000 persons who've been following up and so on. So we've categorized those applicants as active applicants. However, we still found that in order for us to really meet the demand of these applicants, we have to do one, a data cleansing, and we have to analyze this data to really understand the demand in order to meet that demand. Meaning, so we have 70,000 applicants in the system. Many of those persons we found, so we instructed our staff, we're going to have to reach out to each and every one of these persons. So we started calling people up. Those who are coming to the ministry to update and to check on their applications, yes, we are recording that and we're updating as we go along. But those who have not been checking, we've been calling and trying to update. We found several things that contribute to this huge backlog. You have people in the system out of that 70,000 that have migrated. You have people who have passed away. You have people who have gotten married to each other. So now we can merge two applications into one. So those are some of the reasons for that huge number. Then we also had to categorize these applicants into income brackets, geographical location, by profession, to see how we can meet the needs. And so we have developed several programs like the young professional homes that we're going to build to cater for doctors and nurses and engineers and those who can easily access a loan and afford a home. Because, so before I go on to that, so as we go through the data cleansing, we are now moving persons to inactive, or those who have passed away or migrated. Now we can remove them from that 70,000. So I strongly believe that as long as we meet our target of 50,000 at a minimum, then we should be looking really good by 2025 in terms of reducing that backlog. Of course, there are persons that are going to come into the system as well, but I firmly believe that if we stay on target, that we can really reduce that demand for housing. And so we've developed several different programs. All of our schemes we are designing in a way where there are industrial lots, commercial lots, then there are houses, there's the high income section, the middle income, the low income. And we want to build, as we go forward, sustainable communities, communities where you have full occupancy. We want to promote home ownership. This is why we removed VAT from construction materials, and we have mortgage interest relief and all of these things, because we really want to promote home ownership. We don't want housing schemes where you have 50% occupancy. We want sustainable communities, communities with green spaces, with businesses, with supermarkets, with recreational grounds and schools and hospitals. A really sustainable community, and we want to build that across our country. So I think if we stay on target and people respond as they've been responding, we can make our country the system. We can reduce that backlog, and we can make people very happy as we go along.
Okay. Now, you said you plan to give out 50,000 homes in the next 5 years, which is about 10,000 per year. Now, are we going to give out those homes based on the ethnic division of the country? What I meant is this. If you have on a first come, first served basis, and you have 3,000 Afro Guyanese or 3,000 Indo Guyanese, and to give them the house slots based on a first come, first served basis, it will show some bias to the other races. So, how you plan to balance that off?
Well, I don't think that when we're looking at, well, I know that when we're looking at applications, we're not looking at race. What we've tried to do, and I have said this several times publicly, that it is my intention to get rid of the backlog and to address those applications that and those applicants that have been in the system for a very long time. And so in our first set of allocations in Region 4, we have now we can say successfully addressed all of those applicants that have been in the system from the 1990s. So what happened is that there were some persons still in the system from the 1990s, and what happened is that they fell through the cracks, meaning most of them were already previously allocated. It's not like they were forgotten. They were previously allocated, but some of them, for whatever reason, didn't accept the offer. Some were not happy to go into the scheme that they were allocated. Some couldn't afford the lot at the time that they got it. So those are the ones that kind of fell through the cracks. So we wanted to address that. We wanted to be able to say we have successfully removed all of those applicants from the 1990s. So that was our guiding policy for this first set of allocations from the 1990s that we did in Region 4. And it's the same thing we're doing in Region 3. We're trying to deal with the old applications first, because they've been in the system for a long time. They're Guyanese, they deserve a house lot, they're entitled to a house lot. And so that's what we've been trying to do. So no part of this, race does not play any part in this. We are here to serve, and we know that if we are able to meet our target of 50,000 house lots over the next 5 years, we'll be able to address all of those in our system equally without bias. And, I think that is the guiding principle for our government. Our president has been very, very clear that he is going to be a president for all Guyanese. We have been reaching across the aisle. We intend to continue to do that. And we want to convince people, Guyanese people, based on our actions, not on our words, but based on our actions, that we are here to govern for the benefit of all Guyanese. Regardless of your race, regardless of your religion, we will deliver for all Guyanese. And you can judge us based on our actions, not on what we say.
A quick question to you. There are lots of rules and regulations in handing out outlots to Guyanese. The question I would like to ask you, how soon after a person receiving a house lot he or she has to start building one? Could he or she sell that house lot within a matter of a year or so, or pass it on to someone else?
No, well, we have a 10-year cap. You have to own the property for 10 years before you can dispose of it. So this has been the policy of the ministry for as long as I can remember. And that policy still remains today. Of course, people go and they sell, and they use a power of attorney or something like that, some other legal instrument. But we will not transfer title to somebody else until that 10-year is up. Now, we do not make it mandatory that people must build, but we do encourage them to build, because we don't want somebody to acquire a house lot and then they don't do anything with it, and they're still living somewhere else or living with parents or renting and not building, because this is what is contributing to the low occupancy in some of the schemes in the past. So we are trying our best to help people to construct their homes. And we've done several things. So we've removed the VAT on building materials so we can make it more affordable. We have given mortgage interest relief to people who have mortgages from 15 to 30 million dollars. We have raised the low income ceiling for loans from 8 million to 10 million because we want to encourage especially young people to build their own homes. And we have had several consultations with the banks and the Association of Bankers to see how best they can facilitate the applicants that we have in our system. And we're trying to develop a mechanism where we can communicate very effectively with the banks, and so that we can pre-qualify persons and send them on to the banks. As long as we know that they're going to be allocated, we send their names on to the banks and have them pre-qualify them for a loan, because we really want to encourage construction. We want to encourage home ownership. And it's also about balancing interests, because while we want to promote occupancy in our housing schemes, our government is firmly of the belief that the construction industry is going to help to create jobs and to help to turn over our economy. So it's all of these spin-offs: retail sales, employment for contractors, and you know, the canter driver and the contractor and the mason and the carpenter and the plumber. So while we are promising 50,000 house lots, we also have to create jobs, and we also promise, you know, a better economy. And we know that the Ministry of Housing and construction sectors will be able to propel our economy.
Over to you, Charles.
Thank you, Minister. You've been so eloquent in your response to Dr. Rose's question, and you're very knowledgeable what you're saying. What we'll do, Minister, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion on these house distribution.
Sure.
All From One Supplier is pleased to announce its online shipping for West Indian and American groceries. Order online at allfromonesupplier.com and with free shipping and deliveries to any part of the United States. Save time and energy to shop for all of your West Indian groceries from the safety of your home or office. We carry West Indian products like curry powders, meats and fish, dashing bush, pepper sauce, sodas, and your favorite snacks. All From One Supplier has it all. All From One Supplier fulfills and ships your order directly to you. So visit All From One Supplier today to start shopping, or call All From One Supplier at 718-551-3292 to handle all of your West Indian grocery needs. That's All From One Supplier, 718-551-3292. Free shipping, free deliveries, or curbside pickup from allfromonesupplier.com. Travelspan has low fares on American Airlines, Eastern Airlines, Caribbean Airlines, and JetBlue. Let Travelspan shop and compare prices for all 4 airlines. Guyanese now have choices, so book your preferred airline through Travelspan. Call Travelspan at 718-845-0437 for the lowest deals between New York, Miami, and Guyana. That's Travelspan at 718-845-0437. From Miami to Guyana, rates are as low as $186 one-way and $417 round-trip. Deals from New York to Guyana are as low as $191 one-way and $475 round-trip. And Travelspan is also offering shop and ship. So if you cannot travel, you shop and Travelspan will ship all your items for you. So call Travelspan today in New York at 718-845-0437. In Georgetown, 227-1701. In Berbice, 337-4287. And in the West Coast Demerara, 269-0140. Travelspan has several offices to serve all your needs. So call Travelspan today.
Welcome back to our Monday night program, and Honorable Minister Susan Rodrigues for being with us for this session. Dr. Rose, thank you very much. Minister, Shalini they made a statement on the screen I read. She said, people with humble beginning always have a lot to offer in life, and she thinks that you're one of those persons. And what you have answered this afternoon so far, I also believe what Shalini has said. But
That's
I want to
nice,
ask
Shalini.
Yeah, I want to ask you this question from Devika, one of our listeners also on the program. She said, what has been the outcome of the success squatters, and what was the end result of that event, and have they received housing for those people?
So what happened at Success was very unfortunate. When we first heard about what was taking place there, I believe Minister Kroll went over to see what was going on. But when he got there, we found out that, well, it's not our land, and the land belonged to NISIL. So we were discussing with NISIL how to address the situation. And what happened was, our role at the Ministry of Housing was simply to step in and try to see how we can assist the situation. It was not one that we had control over, because the land didn't belong to us. So we were there to facilitate what was taking place. And what subsequently took place, we had no role in that decision. But what we were there to do is to try to assist these persons with house lots. Unfortunately, and I have no explanation as to why, but those persons have simply disappeared just in the same way that they appeared. It was a situation that escalated pretty quickly, because I remember R.K. Sharma saying that when he went on the ground there very early after we were sworn in, there were 3 houses there, 3 persons who were squatting. And then very quickly this thing blew up, and there were over 100 persons, I believe, who had started squatting there. And it was a racket that was going on, and we found out that people were taking money and charging people for these lots. So it really was a situation that was unfortunate, and one that spiraled out of control. But all we were trying to do from the Ministry of Housing's perspective is to try to assist these people as best as we can with house lots. And so we invited them to come in. We had several consultations with them and asked them to put in their applications. Many of them didn't have applications in the system, and we encouraged them to apply. Some of them did have, and we have tried to assist those with their allocations. But now the situation has been alleviated, and over the next 5 years, we'll be able to address more than the success squatters. And we're hoping that squatting would be something that would become a thing of the past, because I think if the Ministry of Housing can really live up to expectations and to the demand, there would be no need for people to squat. So, with His Excellency's guidance, because he was a former Minister of Housing, with his experience in this sector and his guidance, and with the energy and the input of the 2 ministers here, I think we can take the Ministry of Housing to new heights. And, I look forward to the day when Guyanese will no longer have to just squat because, they don't have a piece of land that they can call their own. It is our mandate to ensure that we deliver affordable housing to Guyanese. And so I really want it to be our legacy that one day we can really end squatting in this country.
Thank you, Minister. Guyana, we have our square mile. We have 83,000 square miles, as we all know. In kilometers, I think it's 216,000. I'm not sure. We are still here in the U.S. still using miles, but 83,000 square miles. Kind of, if we want to break down to acreage, it's 53 million acres. So we have 53 million acres of land and water in Guyana. So one of our viewers asked, why don't we give each person 1 acre land instead of a house lot, so that at least they can do some planting of, of a garden, maybe a trees, maybe you can do something, to enhance their way of life. Have your ministry considered giving a person an acre of land rather than a house lot?
Well, there's a huge demand for housing. So let me put it into perspective. Just take, for example, we have everybody wants to live in Georgetown. Georgetown is we're out of space. There is no more land available for housing in Georgetown. So we're having to move outward. And of course we have to make sure that now with the oil and gas sector, there's going to be a huge demand for those persons who are coming into our country. Now, people who are working in Georgetown don't want to go and live outside of Georgetown. But that is something we have to get accustomed to in Guyana, because people in North America and around the world, they travel sometimes 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to get to work. But I think we've been a little bit spoiled in Guyana where, 5 minutes and you've arrived at your workplace, or you've arrived at your destination, and nobody wants to go and live outside of Georgetown. So we have to adapt. We have to build more road networks to try to make that travel time easier and shorter. Now, I agree with you that in some cases, we can look to give persons a lot or a piece of land that is bigger than just a house lot, because in some of the other regions, some of our people depend on farming. And so they can utilize that piece of land for their house and have some land remaining to do some farming. So that is something that we are discussing, and we realize that there is a need for that. But at the same time, while we say Guyana has so much land, we have competing interests there as well. Now, Central Housing and Planning Authority, or the Ministry of Housing, we have to buy land, we have to purchase land from NISIL or from Gaisuku. So we have to pay for these lands, then we have to develop these lands. We have to do the infrastructural works. We have to do access roads and bridges. We have to install a water distribution network, electrical network. So there's a huge cost to that. It's a huge cost to the ministry. It's a huge cost to central government. And, if we were to give everybody an acre, we're going to go further and further away to be able to meet this demand. And as it is right now, people are refusing house lots in some areas because to them it's too far. Or their children go to school on the East Bank and they don't want to go on the East Coast, or the opposite. So, it's while it may sound easy to talk about in conversation, the practicality of it is a different thing. When people come for a house lot, they have all these considerations, and as much as we're trying to facilitate them and give them a house lot, they want to be close to their mother, or they want to be close to some family member who lives in this area. And, so there are a lot of things that also contribute to people not receiving a house lot and being stuck in the system for a long time, because many of them, or a lot of them, refuse where they are allocated. But we have to give in the areas that we are able to acquire, because Gaisuku Gaisuku also needs land for sugar cultivation. So we have to balance that interest in terms of farmlands and lands that will be identified for housing. So while ideally we would love to give people more land, bigger pieces of land, it's difficult finding these areas and accessing these lands.
Thank you, Minister. But I like your approach to that. That is true. People don't like to move too far away. Like to be near to their work environment. This might not be in your ministry's responsibility, but I guess the president and the cabinet per se will have to encourage industries to be developed within Guyana, inside of Guyana. So as the industries are developed, we can now open housing scheme around the industry, like what Bucharest did, as you said. Bucharest did the same thing. They set up housing schemes near the sugar estate, so the workers were near to their place of work. So maybe that's one approach. So then people will move them knowing that there is job available wherever they're going.
And this is why I said earlier too, we want to develop sustainable communities. So communities that have been identified for housing schemes, we are carefully planning those to ensure that we can have industrial activities in those areas, that we can have commercial activities. So this can help with job creation. And also people don't have to worry about driving miles to a supermarket or having to take their children 1 hour to school in the morning. So we have to, it's really town and country planning, you know, that has to take place. And so the president is also, he is determined to build his Silica City. This is a city an idea that he had since he was the Minister of Housing. And we are currently trying to identify land on the Linden-Soesdijk Highway so that we can build this city and we can encourage people to go and live in that part of our country and not feel like they're too far away. So if they're in a community that they have access to all of these things, recreational activities, cinemas and the supermarket and stores, a pharmacy and a hospital and schools, that they would be more encouraged to go there. It's not like they're going and then to take up a house lot there and there's nobody in their streets or there's no commercial activities in the areas. So we feel that we can encourage people to accept lots outside of Georgetown or even outside of Region 4, as long as these communities have all of the activities that are sustainable, and then of course the complementary road network to make it easier for them to travel to work, even if they have to work in Georgetown, that, you know, the drive wouldn't be so long and we can start to adapt to this way of living. Because many Guyanese, when they move to the States or they move to England or Canada or wherever, they have to adapt to that lifestyle. One where you have to travel great distances. So, you know, we hope that people would be encouraged to do the same thing here as well.
Yeah, that would be a holistic approach that the whole government will have to work on it. Before Dr. Rose come on, Minister, Dexter asked a question. What is the current cost per house lot based on the region? I mean, does each region have a separate cost compared to Region 4, to Region 10 or Region 3? Is the cost different between the regions?
Yes, Region 4 is usually the most expensive. But, you know, there are low-income lots, there are middle-income lots, and high-income lots. There's also a category that we call moderate income. That's something between low and middle. So the costs for the lots vary based on the region. So yes, there is that difference, and Region 4 being the most expensive, and the further out you go, it usually gets cheaper as you go out.
You have any idea the cost, like for Region 4 lot? What's the average cost like?
Well, on the East Bank, for example, the middle income now is about 800,000 to 1.2, and the high income lots are going for a little more than that because of the huge demand for the East Bank, and of course it is prime real estate. So while it may sound like a lot, one lot, we've done a cost analysis. It takes about $3.5 million to develop, you know, a lot. And so we are selling these at a cost that is hugely subsidized by the government already. Yeah. So.
Dr.
Yes, Minister Rodrigues. I want to go back to something what you have said, that if you all should give out at least 50,000 house lots in the next 5 years, 10,000 a year, there'll be no need for squatters. But as we speak today, there are over 7,000 squatters in Guyana. I'm a numbers person. There were 7,000 squatters in Guyana, and that number is growing by the hour. How you intend to solve that problem by regularizing the areas they're in or give them separate lots?
So what we do in terms of people who squat, the first approach is to try to regularize the area. The last thing we want to do is to move people from where they are and to demolish their homes and displace them. That is not ideal. So whenever we hear about an area that is developing or has developed or been occupied by squatters, so there is a process. So we have a department here, the Community Development Department, that deals with squatting and regularization. And the first thing they do is to look at the area. They go on the ground, they consult, they see where this squatter settlement is developing, and we try to regularize that. That is our first approach, to try to see if we can regularize it. We do an occupational survey, and we lot it out, and then we can then subsequently acquire that piece of land if it belongs, depending on which agency owns that piece of land. We acquire it, and then we can then transfer ownership to those persons who are squatting. If they are along a conservancy or a reserve that is, a zero tolerance area, then they will eventually have to move. Of course, we always encourage them to ensure that they put in their application in the system, because you can't receive a house lot unless you have put in your application. It's like the lottery. You can't win the lottery if you don't have a ticket. So we encourage people to put in their house lot application, and then we can respond to that and to try to help them in terms of moving. But the idea is, if we can get rid of this backlog, then people wouldn't have to be waiting for 5, 10, 15 years. People will have confidence in the government that if I want a place to live, I don't have to go and squat. I can put in my application, I can go to the Ministry of Housing, and I can get a timely response, and I can get somewhere that is affordable, and I can take up a house lot, and they will guide me through the process and maybe help me to construct a home. That is what we want. We want people to have confidence in our ministry. Granted, there's this huge backlog, but we believe that we have a plan to address that. And if and when we live up to that expectation and we can reduce this backlog, then people who are coming into the system will be able to come in and have a timely response and have guidance throughout the process. Not just coming in and putting in an application and then they never hear back from the ministry or from staff here. But if we respond timely, we respond in the quickly, I don't believe that people will just decide that they're going to go and squat. We need to restore that confidence at the ministry level, and I think if once we have achieved this target, we'll be able to reduce that backlog, and people will have confidence coming to us knowing that they can get assistance, and we are assisting people. Usually you have to pay a 50% down payment, and then you have to pay off the rest within 6 months or so. But we're trying to work with people. We're meeting with people and trying to see how we can put them on payment plans so that they can pay every month. Especially those poorer class of people, we want to make sure that they can live in dignity and still be able to be able to afford their own house lot, afford their own home, and to live in dignity and to raise their family.
I just want to let you know that Charles won the lotto with someone else's ticket. Minister, you're also in charge of water.
That, Charles.
It's coming soon. I'll come to Guyana and celebrate.
Was it your
also the
ticket, Dr. Rose?
No, pardon me?
Was it your ticket?
No, he wanted to someone else's ticket. He's going to tell you about that when we go to the break. I know you're also the Minister of Waterworks, but before going there, I want to say this to you. I was told that there's a place in Guyana called Plastic City. somewhere in the West Coast, where I don't know where it is, but it's been there for years now. And it's called Plastic City. I was told this again because the people don't have money to put zinc on their house tops, so they put plaster on the top of the houses to prevent rain from entering. Is that city still exist? And if it does, how would you intend to help those people?
Well, I haven't been to Plastic City. I have heard about it, and I know that I believe another minister from another ministry has been there. We do plan to have an outreach, and we will visit them. But you know, Plastic City is no different from any other community where there's squatters. So we do have to have that same kind of humane approach. Of course, like I said before, we don't want to displace people. We want to make housing affordable. We want to encourage people to occupy a house lot, to live in dignity, to raise their families. So Plastic City, I don't think needs a unique approach, but it needs the same kind of compassionate approach where we have a consultation with them, and we have our community development department and all of our officers going with them, meeting with them, trying to see how best we can relocate them to an area where they are safe, because a lot of times too, we find that in these zero tolerance areas, where people are living, they contaminate the water in the conservancy and so on, and it becomes very dangerous, and they pose a very high health risk to the rest of the population. So there are a lot of interests that we have to balance, but you know, we are taking a softer approach to persons who are squatting, and we will continue to do so. And if we make these lots available as quickly as possible, we'll be able to address the situation of squatting in our country.
Okay. In the past, many people have purchased government houses have complained of faulty foundations, leaking roofs, poor electrical and plumbing works, and so forth. And these are all had to do with the building codes and the materials being used. And it's still happening today. How would the government rectify this situation with those people complaining, if you have any complaints? And are your ministry enforcing the building codes?
Yes, sure. So we had an EOI out recently for contractors to submit their bids for the construction of homes.
What's an EOI? Can you tell the audience that?
Sorry, an expression of interest.
Okay.
For persons to express an interest, contractors who wish to build these homes. We are currently, we've received several dozens of expressions of interest, and we have a team that is currently evaluating the skills and the experience of each of these contractors. And myself and Minister Crowell have had several consultations as well with these contractors to ensure that they're using the right material, and these homes will not be faulty or deficient in any way. We have approved the designs from the ministry here. That's one of the ways that we're trying to control the quality of these homes. We have approved the design here, rather than just, you know, letting them go and build whatever they feel like building. We have approved the designs, and they have to build it according to our specification. So that is a new approach that we're taking. We've approved the design, we've approved the specifications, and they have to come in to meet those specifications, and within a certain budget as well. And we always have our evaluators going through their experience. They have to prove their experience in building homes, and we will be inspecting as we go along. So we're not just giving people land and telling them to go build as private developers. We're trying to maintain as much control as possible, because we want to make sure that people get value for money. So that's the approach we're taking to the construction of homes.
All right. Doc, we will go to the water after the break. But Minister, before we go to break, for doctor information, Plastic City is right at Vredenhoek there, going towards the jetty. And it's really, really a bad area, I'm told, because people are so poor there. And it's very dangerous, as you said as well. But Minister, before we go to break, are you, now that we are an oil and gas country, I mean, we heard over the weekend that we are now doing 120,000 barrels on Lisa 1. In the new construction of building and infrastructure, is your ministry now going to put in place on the underground lines for gas and for sewer and for different things to cater for those industries when we get the gas coming to shore? Because sometime in the future, all Guyanese will be like in North America. Your gas will flow straight into your home for cooking. Is that part of your plan to put that in place in the new development? Because sometimes it might be difficult to have the existing infrastructure change, but at least for the new ones, you can have those as part of the plan for the developers.
So that's something we'll definitely consider. But as it is right now, we have identified those areas that will satisfy our first 10,000 house lot allocations for our first year. So those areas have already been identified, and we have tendered for those works. So those infrastructural works will go on in the conventional way in terms of the land preparation and construction of roads and bridges and drains, etc. I don't think we are ready at this time, and we don't know where the pipelines are going to go. So we'd be jumping the gun a bit if we start to think about that now at the Ministry of Housing. But I know there are consultations that are happening at a higher level about the pipelines and so on. So, and I'm sure that once those decisions have been made and that area has been identified, then we can take housing to another level. But as it is right now, I don't think we're in a position to at our ministry to identify that and to cater for that as it is now.
Thank you, Minister. When we come back, we want to talk about water, as Doc said, and because we so far consider housing, we want to get a little on water and see where we go with water. So we'll be back in a minute, Minister. Thank you.
Okay.
Globespan 24/7 continues its efforts to serve the communities. The platform provides for all sides to air their views and discuss solutions. Viewers in Guyana and across the world are participating in these discussions. Globespan's platform offers Guyanese an opportunity to express their concerns and discuss solutions in the political realm, thereby addressing the polarized situation. Discussions also include social ills, such as alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicides that have been plaguing the people. The Globespan 24/7 platform connects the diaspora and the world with Guyana. So become a supporter of Globespan 24/7 today by clicking the badge icon on the lower right side of your screen. For only $10 a month, you will be a supporter of Globespan 24/7 initiative and have a badge displayed on your Facebook profile. Help us to continue to serve the communities. All From One Supplier is pleased to announce its online shipping for West Indian and American groceries. Order online at allfromonesupplier.com and with free shipping and deliveries to any part of the United States. Save time and energy to shop for all of your West Indian groceries from the safety of your home or office. We carry West Indian products like curry powders, meats and fish, dashing bush, pepper sauce, sodas, and your favorite snacks. All From One Supplier has it all. All From One Supplier fulfills and ships your order directly to you. So visit All From One Supplier today to start shopping, or call All From One Supplier at 718-551-3292 to handle all of your West Indian grocery needs. That's All From One Supplier, 718-551-3292. Free shipping, free deliveries, or curbside pickup from allfromonesupplier.com. Logistics International, based in Trinidad with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218. Or email at liclcargo@gmail.com.
Welcome back to our program tonight. We want to again thank the Honorable Minister, Susan Rodrigues, for being with us, and Dr. Rose. And we also want to encourage our viewers out there. I know Christmas is this week, but if you're traveling to Guyana anytime in the future, please book your ticket through Globespan. They get a commission. They have the cheapest ticket out there anyway. So go and book a Globespan and you will enjoy your flight going to Guyana. Minister, I know we spoke a lot of housing for the last hour. As Dr. Rose indicated, let us get into water. We have a friend here in New York. His name is Zim. He's going to work with Gaisuko from next year. He's an engineer, and he was telling us that to increase the water pressure, all we have to do is to ensure that the lines are firm, not saggy. You know, when they're running the main lines, it's up and down and it's saggy. Running from the main line to your home, and it's limpy, and it's got a belly there, as we say. Those things reduce the pressure of water. Are you having meetings with your? I know you said there's an independent, entity, the GWI, but are you having meetings with them to let them tell you and Minister Kroll what best they will do to ensure that the water supply and the pressure to the homes is increased?
So we found several things at GWI. In 2015, when the PPP demitted office, GWI had just over 600 employees. Over the last 5 years, that has more than doubled. So there are over 1,300 employees at GWI now. And the agency is in serious financial trouble. 70% of the water that is delivered is non-revenue water, meaning simply 70% of the delivery we don't receive any money for. So that's the non-revenue water. So the agency is heavily subsidized and in serious trouble financially. So we're trying to restructure the organization to make it run more lean, and to also to ensure that, well, when we saw this huge increase in the staff, there was no corresponding benefit to say that, well, the service has improved. As a matter of fact, the company was performing very poorly, and a lot of people were complaining about the service that they're receiving, the level of service, that is the pressure that you're talking about, and also the responsiveness from GWI. From the time I was announced as minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, my phone became like a complaints authority. So people are calling me about and reporting leakages across the country. In every region, there was a lot of trouble in this area. So that contributes as well to low pressure, because when the pipes are porous, that reduces the pressure, and also water gets contaminated. And so by the time the consumer turns on their tap, there's sediments, and then the pressure is low as well. Now, I've spoken to the engineer, or several engineers at GWI, and I found out that they actually have the capacity to increase the PSI. So while they have the capacity in terms of the pumps to do that, they cannot turn up the pressure because the infrastructure, the distribution network is so aged, going back to the 1960s and even before, that were they to turn up the pressure, these pipes would just explode. So we have started to identify some of the areas that are really in bad shape, and we're addressing those first. So along the Church Street area, Vicinjon Road, Cemetery Road, these have some of the oldest networks, distribution networks. And we have started to address that already in our 2020 budget. And we are continuing those works in our 2021 budget, where we're trying to replace those pipelines. Those are major distribution networks and they're very old. So we're starting to replace, we've started to identify, first of all, those areas that have those aged pipe networks, and we're trying to replace them. Of course, it's very expensive, and it will disturb the water distribution, and in many cases we have to dig up the road and then we have to fix it back. But it's something that we have to start doing, because as these as the construction industry grows, and as more hotels are coming on stream, and people will want to come and build condominiums and all of these things, we have to improve the level of service. In many communities now, we struggle to deliver water on the first floor. So if we don't start replacing this network now with new distribution networks, there's no way we're going to be able to go to 5, 10, 15 stories. So we are aware that we have to start doing this now. We have to start somewhere, because we've looked at where we want to be in 5 years' time and the type of service we want to deliver. So we're starting to address that. And of course, while we want to improve the level of service, we have to make sure that we deliver treated water as well. And that's another challenge, and that's also very expensive to do. I've recently done a proposal, and I presented this to several groups already, including the group that was here from Dubai, a coastal water treatment proposal. It's going to cost about $100 million US, because 52% of the water that we deliver, only 52% is treated water. So in order for us to get to over 90%, roughly about 93% of treated water, it's going to cost another $100 million US. So we're hopeful that we can get funding for this, and with the oil and gas sector coming on stream, hopefully we'll be able to have the money to be able to deliver treated water to every Guyanese household.
Thank you, Minister. And I know Saint Singh will not be happy about this, because Zim is coming to work with Gaisuko. But when he comes to Guyana, Minister, maybe if you and Minister Crowell can see him, he has a lot of knowledge in water as well, and tell you exactly maybe how you can help improve that system. Dr. Rose?
Yeah, Minister Rodrigues, I read somewhere some time ago that Guyana is a land of many waters. And some of the history books I read that in. But throughout Guyana today, a day will not go by when someone will not have, when there are water stoppages. It's happened in Georgia, it's happened up the bank of the East Coast, all of the quarantine, there's always water stoppage. Pipes will not run during the day. How can that be improved?
So we currently have a program where we're trying to identify the different level of service across the regions. So the CEO, Mr. Shikbash, is currently working on that program. We want to be able to see on a dashboard what is the level of service in region 1, in region 2, in region 3, by each region and by areas. And we're trying to color code that so we'll be able to respond. We know about the water woes. I mean, I live here. I know how the story goes. If you don't have your black tank, you're in trouble. So it's delivering treated water, is ensuring that the water stays on. And we're trying to eliminate this problem where we have only a few hours of delivery. So water has to be managed. We have to monitor consumption, and we have to ensure that bit by bit that we are able to improve the level of service and the consistency. We want our people to be able to, every time they turn on the tap, the water is on. Of course, we have to also ensure that the lights are on too, because what happens in many of the cases from the water treatment plants, if there's blackout in the area, then there's no water. So that's not necessarily a GWI problem, but a GPL problem. So we have to improve both of these services simultaneously. We have to keep the lights on, and that will help to keep the water on as well. But it is a painful process. It is an expensive process, but we are working on it. We're trying to go through community by community, improving the service. Sometimes, and we've had success in many cases, moving the water from 6 hours delivery to 18 hours, and in some communities 24 hours. But we're going through it. It's painstaking, but we're committed to ensuring that within our first 5 years that we can have an improved level of service, that people can be satisfied with the water they receive from GWI, that it's treated water, and that they have the consistency. Every time they turn on their taps, they have the security of knowing that water will come through that pipe.
Okay. I also read somewhere where black tanks were a late 1970s or 1980s invention in Guyana. Someone told me it wasn't there before. Are those going to be there permanently, or the water pressure will be increased to the level where there'll be no need for black tanks anymore on the roof of houses?
Well, that's the aim. That's the aim, to ensure that we can get rid of that. So it's not just the level of service, but water has to be constant. You want it to flow constantly, and as long as you know that you can rely on that water to come through the taps, then you don't need to store in black tanks. But of course, we have beautiful rainy weather in Guyana too, and some people like to wash their clothes with the rainwater, so the black tanks come in handy in that case.
Okay. Now, one other question: water. I've read, well, not read. I saw this recently, where the government will be raising money to help the water works improve water delivery. But will this be an accountable process? Because every government promised free flow of water, better water, more potable water. And as they leave office, the water is even worse, just like GPL, blackouts, and so forth. Everyone promised to rectify the blackouts in Guyana. But as they leave office, it remains the same. And the same is true for the water system. So borrowing money to improve the water works. Will there be an accountability process for this?
Well, in every program, in every government program, there has to be transparency. There has to be accountability. One of the areas of priority for me is ensuring that we deliver water to those areas that have been unserved. Because as much as we talk about improving the level of service and ensuring that water flows constantly, there are still areas in our country, not so far away from the city, that people are without access to water. And I visited several of those communities: Lust and Russ, right in Region 3, Prospect, right here in Region 4, Esau, Jacob, Myconi in Region 5. These were areas where people are living that they did not have access to water. And so first-time access and those unserved areas are a first priority for me, and ensuring that we deliver that, and that ties into our housing program as well. So we have to have a comprehensive approach where, as we develop housing schemes, we ensure that the distribution network is there for the distribution of water, so that people can start to occupy their house lots, build their homes, and of course have access to clean water. It is important for our government to come into compliance with Sustainable Development Goal 6, access to clean water, we are committed to reducing the iron content in our water, and hence we want to go out there to raise capital to be able to have treated water. And, you know, again, the only way you'll be able to tell whether we are successful at this or not would be once you've experienced it. And so we are working assiduously to ensure that while we improve the housing sector, that we also improve the water sector, because having this high iron content as well poses a lot of challenges in the metering service that we have too, because this blocks up the meters in many cases, and then we have to send out people to service the meters, and beneficiaries complain that they're not receiving water or the pressure has been reduced, but this is because the meters have become blocked. So there are many things that need fixing simultaneously, but I can assure you that our government is committed to addressing the water woes, and within our first 5 years, you'll be able to come back and tell me whether we have been successful in doing so.
I will. One quick question. The houses going up in the new housing schemes, will they be required black tanks too now?
Well, we're trying to reduce that. We're trying to make sure that the water is on and the water stays on. You know, in an ideal situation, we would hope that persons would not have to require a black tank. I believe that we can get to that point, hopefully within the next 5 years, and we certainly want to ensure that we have been catering, and it is part of our approach to housing, that once we've identified an area for the development of a housing scheme, that we've also included in our budget allocations for the drilling of wells and the distribution networks. But we also have to keep the lights on so that water can keep flowing through these pipes. So in an ideal world, yes, that is our aim, to ensure that people don't have to rely on black tanks or reservoirs. So we are working to address that situation. But, you know, it's always better to be safe than sorry.
Thank you. Charles?
Minister, Doc mentioned exactly what we talk about. Guyana is the land of many waters. When we had Minister Zulfi on this program, I asked him about building up the walls of the conservancy. I know you talk about the Middle Eastern people coming to Guyana and recommending water treatment, but they treat salt water. They don't have fresh water like us. But we have an abundance of fresh water in the conservancy. So why don't we spend the money to build the banks of the conservancy, keep the fresh water there, and then release that, which need less treatment, because the water is very pure already. So it's less treatment for the distribution, for drinking, and for, you know, domestic use. That's one thing. Secondly, I want to recommend to you, Minister, is you're too young maybe to know this, but in the old days, they had these overhead tanks. You know, most wells, the water will be coming up from the aquifer and go up to this overhead tank, and then the natural flow will now flow into the pipes to go into the villages so people can get water. Is that an approach that maybe GWI or the ministry is giving directive to go in?
Well, I mean, we do have an abundance of fresh water, yes, but getting it to the housing schemes poses a challenge, and it will take a more comprehensive approach to be able to address that situation. But as it is right now, we rely heavily on groundwater. Most of our reliance on water comes from groundwater, and so the approach that we're using right now is the drilling of wells. This has its challenges, of course, in terms of the iron content, but we are looking to address this situation. And if we have to rely on the fresh water, as I mentioned before, we also have to treat that. that we also have to have treated water there. So it's the same cost that goes into to treating that water. And if we have people who are squatting along conservancies and so on, the water becomes contaminated. So we can't take it for granted that this is fresh water and this is clean water, and we can just, people can just use this and they'll be safe. We have to ensure that this water passes through a treatment process in order for it to get to the households. So as it is right now, the water that comes from the well, the groundwater, is safer because, while it has its iron content, it's still safer than coming from the conservancy where we have people squatting along that area and bathing in the water or disposing of garbage in that water. So that has to go through our treatment plant before it gets to the household. So the well water in this case is much safer for consumption.
And you're so right, Minister. Those embankments that were supposed to protect those watershed coming from like the Lamaha Canal water, for instance, that flows into Georgetown as well. So they get some water from that. And you're right. But the good news is that we don't have a huge population. So some people might be squatting there. But as you said in our first segment, if you regularize those people, hopefully they will not be squatting on the embankment to protect our watershed and everything else. So out of that, hopefully will flow a better quality of water. So the need to treat it will not be as much as the underground water. But Minister, you have a great plan. And I think, as Dr. Rose said, I think the President has, with Minister Crowell and you, I think you have your hand full. There's so much more to discuss, but I know our time is coming to an end. But you have been such a great resource person tonight, Minister. We want to thank you so much for being on the program, and we look forward to having you sometime in the near future. In closing, Dr. Rose, you want to say anything to Minister?
Yes, thank you very much, Minister Rodrigues, and I hope very, very soon you'll come back if we see something is improving or not improving. But on the other hand, I think Charles is right. You lay a foundation out of what the government will be doing in the next 5 years, which is good. So it's up to us now to hold you accountable to those.
That's fine. Hold our feet to the fire, as the President
right.
said.
What you say, and we'll make sure that we monitor every step of the way to make sure that these are being achieved. Thank you very much again for coming on to the program.
Sure, my pleasure. Have a good evening.
Anything in closing? You want to tell us anything in closing?
No, well, I think this, I've said this before, and I think it rings true that this is an exciting time to be Guyanese. And, we have also embarked on a campaign per se where we are encouraging people to come home, come back to Guyana. This is an exciting time for our country, and we are encouraging people to come back home. Let's develop Guyana. We want those young people to come back, bring their skills, bring their knowledge, and let's develop this country and really make Guyana the envy of the Caribbean and South America. So I think we have a lot to look forward to, and I'm excited to do this work, and I'm excited to see where this country will be in 5 years.
Minister,
I'm also excited that you don't want old people like Charles to come back home.
No, that's fine. We want you guys to. This can be a little Florida. You can bring back some of that money that you've made, and now you want to come back and retire and spend some of that money here. So that's good. You can come back.
Minister was biased towards young people. She don't want the old people to come, right?
No. We want you to come. We want you to come. Of course not.
Well, Minister, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas to you and the ministry and to the President and all the people of Guyana. We want to wish all our viewers a very Merry Christmas, and we hope that 2021 will be a far better year than we have had this year. So, Minister, thank you so much again.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas to you and yours.
Thank you, Minister.
Well, God bless.